All right, let's take a look at another sign here. And we'll start off just by talking about the meaning of this word here. And 추락하다, 추락하다 is a verb that means to fall. And the noun form of that verb, if I took out the hada, just 추락 refers to the noun form of that, which would be, I guess you'd say, falling. Now, 주의, I talk about it actually in a lot of sign videos because it's very commonly placed immediately after something that you need to be careful of to say, hey, be careful of this particular situation. I talked about it in a lot of different videos where it's saying, hey, watch out because there's this particular dangerous thing that's happening that's indicated right here. 주의하다 is a verb that sort of means to take caution of, or to be careful of, or something like that. And if you're just talking about the noun form of that, if you're going to translate it, especially in terms of signs, what you would usually translate this into for signs is just to sort of say, caution, caution. And well, what do we need to be cautionate about? Or cautious about? No, caution, it's not a word. What do we need to be cautious about? Well, we need to be cautious about falling. What I want to spend most of my time talking about is this little sentence that we have down here. The first thing I want to point out is, if you look at it, you say, "Oh, great, Mr. How to Study Korean. I studied lesson 12, and I studied the meaning of this, and I talk about it here, and I studied the meaning of what this does. So, oh, you don't need to go over this thing, and it's here twice, so I know what this means in both situations." Well, actually, it's a different thing in each situation. The meaning of this one and the meaning of this one is different. And I'd like to spend or focus a little bit of time talking about the difference between these two and how they're different. In the lesson that I showed you, the particle that is being added is this uro, and you would add ro if the thing ends in a consonant, and you'd add you'd add uro if the thing ends in a consonant, and you would add ro if the thing ends in a vowel. And you see here this uro is this particular meaning here. And it's actually not this particular meaning here. The thing that I talk about in lesson 12 is this one, but it's not this one. This is actually a different meaning. I'll talk about this in a second. If you want to add uro or ro to something, this are ends in a vowel. So you don't add are uro because that's too many syllables. You can simply just add are ro, and that's what's being added here. And that refers to a direction. And it doesn't mean direction, but it indicates that direction. It doesn't mean direction, but it indicates that that this situation or this verb is happening in the direction of this particular thing. And I'll just tell you what this means right now because it's a simple word. It means below. Below. So right now in this whole thing, we know just this one little section that in the direction of below. Now, again, as I said before, if you were looking at this as a beginner, you might say, oh, well, this ro, this direction is here twice. Well, actually, it's not. This ro is different, and I want to explain what this means by talking first of what this means. Now, 보행, and I'll just write this down just very quickly, 보행하다. In theory, this is a verb that means to walk. To walk. But actually, I can't imagine any situation where I would say 보행하다 as to walk, or if I just want to talk about the noun 보행 to mean walking. I can't imagine any situation where I would say that. I would almost always use the more common verb 걷다. 걷다. So I'm actually going to cross this out completely because I actually suggest you don't use this 보행하다 to say to walk. I would suggest you always use this very common verb 걷다 to mean to walk. Well, if I'm saying that, why is this word, and it's a noun here, but why is this being used in this situation? Well, 보행 is most commonly used when it's a noun form like this and it's followed by some Hanja character, of course the Korean version of the Hanja character, but some Hanja thing to indicate that it's something regarding or referring to walking. And in my previous sign video, the sign explanation video number 14, I talked about the meaning of cha. And I showed you the Hanja lesson where you can find cha. But cha refers to a person who does this particular action. A common word that where you might see this is, I don't know, for example, the word 화학 refers to chemistry, and 화학자 means a person who does chemistry, and that would be a chemist. Another example is the word 운전, and that refers to driving, and 운전자 refers to a person who drives, and that would just be a driver. Well, if you think about what 보행자 would mean, if 보행 means to walk or walking, well, 보행자 means a person who walks, and you would translate that to, I guess you would say, pedestrian. But it could, in theory, just mean a person who walks. Now, another situation, as I said, 보행 is most commonly used if there's some sort of hanja character following it like this. Well, 보행자 refers to a pedestrian, and 로, and I'll show you the hanja character for it here. It's in hanja lesson 28, and I talk about all these different transportation hanja characters. So this is the word for car, and this is the word for station. And this is the one that we're talking about here, 로, and it refers to a road. And so if this refers to a road, well, what this 보행 로 is a pedestrian road. Or in other words, sometimes you could translate it to pedestrian road, but it could also be a sidewalk. All right. So already we know that don't go in the direction of below. Well, below what? Well, below the sidewalk. Now, this verb here, the base form of this verb is 내려가다. And what I'm doing is I'm adding 지 말다 to the stem of this verb. And I want to talk about what that would mean just for a second. You've seen it in a few other of my sign videos, but you would add, very commonly, especially for a beginner, what you would see added to this on top of being added to this is you would see a command ending. And the most common command endings that you would see, or probably the most common command ending that you would see, is if you were adding 세요. And for example, if you were just saying 가세요, that would mean go, as you're telling somebody to go. And if you were going to say 공부하세요, that would mean study, as in, hey, you should study right now. And it's saying you go and you study. So these are commands. This is a command ending. But what's being added to 말다 in this case is not 세요, but it's something very similar, both in meaning and in structure. Is same, this and then 시, 오. And both of these, 세요 and 시오, they're both commands. They both have the same meaning, but 시오 is much, much more formal. And actually so formal, you almost rarely even say this in everyday conversation. You more formally see it in formal writing, like formal writings like this, like on signs. Now, I want to spend just a second here talking about what happened to this letter. Well, you can see here it's gone. The base form of this verb, ma, is actually 말다. And as you know, you always get rid of the stem, so the ta is not there. But what happened to this letter here? Well, anytime you add this ending, anytime again, this is an option. The reason why this is in brackets, just like we saw here, is I have the option of if it's a vowel or if it's a consonant that this is being added to. I need to either eliminate this, or I need to keep it, depending on if the thing it's being added to is a vowel, or ends in a vowel or ends in a consonant. And anytime you're adding this, and the following syllable starts with this letter, and there's three common ones. There's this one here, again, where you see the same structure. I have the choice of adding this if the thing ends in a vowel or a consonant. And then same thing here, I have the choice of adding this if the thing ends in a vowel or a consonant. And then if the next letter after that happens to be this letter, and this letter is called 시옷, and if the next letter happens to be this, well, then there's a particular grammatical irregular that I need to be aware of. And these are two sort of common things that you would see this structure in, but a third one is this. And in the lesson that I introduce this grammatical principle, I'll go to that right now. In this lesson, lesson 39, I talk about when and where you would add this, adding she. And again, it's adding she or ushi, depending on if it ends in a vowel or if it ends in a consonant. let's not focus on the meaning of this, because this video is not on the meaning of this, but more on the structure of how the irregular works. If I want to add this she or this she, depending on different types of irregulars, I would actually see the verb change depending on the different things that it's being added to. In our situation, because we're talking about malda, what I need to do is I need to look at the irregular, this irregular here. And if you go to this lesson and look at this irregular, what actually happens is you'll see that if I have salda, which is to live, salda is the original form of the verb. What happens is I eliminate this final consonant and I add this thing directly to the stem after eliminating this. So that's actually the same thing that's happening with malda. If I have malda, and if I want to add something that starts with this and shio, and that's following the exact same pattern that I showed you in this lesson. I'm adding this if I need to or not, if depending it's a vowel or a consonant, followed by this shio letter. And I hope you can, as you're watching this video, understand that this structure is the same as this structure. It's slightly different kind of ending here, but it's the same thing, the same start of what's being added to the verb. Now, in this situation, as I showed you in the lesson, what I need to do with this irregular is actually eliminate this. And again, that's why I've eliminated this here. And then I need to not add this. And that's why I've eliminated this. And you never add the stem, you always take out the stem. So what's happening is shio is being added directly to ma. And that's why I don't have, I'll write what we don't have. I don't have mal, shi, oh, I don't have that. I don't have mal, shi, oh, I don't have that. What I have is, again, I should be eliminating this, and I should be eliminating this, and I should also be eliminating this. So in all situations, what I need to do is have ma, shi, oh. And I've eliminated a lot of things in this situation. Now, why this would be difficult, especially if you're a very beginner in Korean, is this is just this one particular irregular. If you have a verb that ends in a different types of consonant, well, there's a whole different set of rules that you have to follow. For example, if I was adding the same ending here, the same ending of this, if I wanted to add that to this verb, well, it would actually be a whole different set of rules. And I don't want to confuse you too much because this is not the purpose of this video. But if I was going to add this same thing that I saw being added to this, where I eliminated this and added shio directly after that, the result of adding these two things together would actually be ji, shi, oh. I'm not going to get into explaining that because I just want to show it to you to make you realize, I guess, A, Korean is difficult, and B, irregulars make it even more difficult. And the good thing is I have all this built out here, and you can see these are all the different irregulars that you have in Korean. And the other bad news, if you're learning Korean, is this is just one particular addition. There are many, many, many additions that you can add, and this is just one particular style of additions. And this one particular style of additions can actually be added to many different types of irregulars, and they all sort of change depending on different things. And as you can imagine, there's many, many, many things that you need to worry about if you're studying Korean, and especially when you get to irregulars, it can be very, very difficult. Now that we understand the whole meaning of all the words and grammar and the signs, and actually, I don't even think I got to the meaning of this particular verb. The meaning of this particular verb is to go down. To go down, or I guess you could say to descend, to go down. And when you add chi malda to a verb like this, there's a few different types of translations and meanings it could have, but one common thing, and this is what we have here, is it's saying don't do this particular action. And I can specifically tell you don't as in a command to say don't do this particular action. if I've added one of these command endings here, and again, this is, as I said before, this is a command ending. So if I put just this part together, what this is saying is, well, this is a command ending. This jima is saying don't do the action before it, and this is the action before it. So it's giving a command of not doing this action of going down. And if I was going to translate that to plain English, it's simply don't go down. Well, don't go down where? Don't go down below or in the direction of below the pedestrian street or the pedestrian road or the sidewalk, because really you could fall, and that's why it's saying here, be careful of falling. Well, that was fun. I hope you learned a lot. Like our sign videos? You can see all of our Korean sign explanation videos by clicking the link here. We also have a ton of videos showing various aspects of Korean culture, tourist areas, cuisine, and everyday life. You can go there by clicking this link here. You can also subscribe to our channel by clicking this button.